This is a brutal, radical theocracy that wants to destroy America and wipe Israel off the face of the earth.
Iran's newfound capabilities, coupled with America's non-existent or insufficient response to past ballistic missile, cruise missile, and drone operations by itself and its proxies, will drive more, not fewer, tests, transfers, and military operations.
Iran specialists of greater or lesser degrees of hawkishness are present throughout Washington, D.C.'s think tanks, such as the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, the Brookings Institute, and the Council on Foreign Relations. But none of them have made an institutional specialty of recommending hardline Iran policies, such as economic terrorism called sanctions, and offering detailed proposals as how to implement them the way the Foundation for Defense of Democracies has done. Since its founding in 2001, the FDD has carved out a niche for itself as a harbor for Washington, D.C.'s Iran hawks, with CEO Mark Dubowitz as its well-connected leader. In a January 2023 article, the FDD presented a comprehensive plan for American policymakers and allies to overthrow the Islamic Republic of Iran. An extremely detailed, comprehensive strategy that called for the use of multiple instruments of overt and covert American power. The plan included economic warfare, support for anti-Iran proxy forces and dissidents, and an all-out offensive against the Islamic Republic's ideological legitimacy.
Iran is not de-escalating in the region. Iran is locking in its posture. This is basically a knife in the back of Saudi Arabia for 10 years, and then a handshake does not account to de-escalation. Iran's changes to some of its security posture in the region should not be mistaken for de-escalation. In addition to the strong multilateral recommendations for sanctions that Norm Rule just mentioned, I would echo one other thing. Deterrence by punishment, not just deterrence by denial. It is not enough to have air and missile defense assets in the region.
What is punishment?
Deterrence by punishment is kinetic strikes, more,
okay,
lower threshold for those kinetic strikes, and more often and against the point of origin.
We are in a very dire situation. Unfortunately, for $50 billion or more, we're not actually curtailing their nuclear program. We're not rolling it back. We're not getting rid of the enrichment. They're still enriching at 60%. The breakout timeline is still near zero. And we're now moving the goalposts to hoping that the intelligence community can detect weaponization.
What's Iran's current estimated breakout time?
We're near zero, ma'am. A long weekend, we can have enough fissile material for one nuclear weapon, 9 nuclear weapons in 3 months. But the key to remember here is that if we had stayed firm in the maximum pressure campaign up front, instead of going to maximum deference, we wouldn't have seen Iran race forward to this nuclear threshold that we find them in today.
After Obama took office, FDD, led by Dubowitz, proposed imposing further sanctions on Iran to force it to abandon its nuclear program. Reportedly, Dubowitz has been helping design and push forward sanctions on Iran since well before they became the centerpiece of Trump's policy toward Islamic Republic. He was closely involved in legislation for sanctions on Iran's central bank and oil sector in 2011, and in making it harder for Tehran to move money in 2012. He helped lead the charge against the emerging nuclear deal beginning in 2013, establishing the FDD as DC's ground zero for research and policy recommendations aimed at highlighting and fixing what Dubowitz saw as the flaws in the nuclear agreement. He and his organization attracted headlines in the process and were the go-to place for journalists seeking quotes from the deal's critics. Meanwhile, the Iranian Foreign Ministry has added the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and its executive chief, Mark Dubowitz, to its list of sanctioned entities a few years ago, holding them responsible for the designing, imposing, and intensifying of economic terrorism against the Islamic Republic and the Iranian nation.
We cannot approach this regime as one that you are going to negotiate as if you're in a Western bar trying to make a real estate deal. And so a combination of military deterrence, economic pressure, and maximum support for the Iranian people has to be the basis for a long-term sustainable policy solution.